everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's Toying back again with another video, and this time I'm going to be doing a book review of one of my favorite books of all time called Half of a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. So this book is a book that I discovered through a colleague of mine, well not a colleague, my old boss, right? So he was this American guy from Texas, and an older fella, and I was in the lunchroom, and he walks into the lunchroom and he's like, "Are you Nigerian? Are you Nigerian? I need a Nigerian." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm Nigerian." What's going on? Sorry to anybody from Texas. That's like my best American accent, and you can tell that acting is not my forte, but I did try. So anyway, so he says that his name was Bill, and I was like, "I'm Nigerian." He was like, "Oh my God, I'm reading the most amazing book." I would try the American accent again, so you're all right. But he was like, "I've just read the most amazing book. It's a New York Times bestseller, and I picked it up because of the New York Times, and you've got to read it and let me know what you think." And then when he finished the book a couple of days later, he actually loaned me his copy. And this was like the CEO of the company. Like he was like the no, he wasn't CEO, he was the managing director of the company. So he was very, very senior. And so he lent me his copy, which I took home. I started reading it on the train ride home, and I thought, do you know what? I'm gonna pause for a beat and pick this back up when I've got a day. So I think that was on a Thursday that I started reading it on the train back home. So I didn't read it on the Friday, and then on the Saturday morning I woke up, started reading this book in the morning, and I cannot say I could not put it down. As in, I read it from the minute I woke up till like 2 a.m. the following morning. I didn't shower. I didn't cook any big meals. I basically was holed up on my living room couch with cups after cups after cups of tea, lots of biscuits. I don't think I even put it down long enough to make a sandwich, and I read it in a day. That's how good this book was. So, without further ado, I'm going to read you a bit of the plot, and then I'll let you know who my favorite characters are, what I like about the book, what I didn't like about the book, if anything, and my rating for the book, which I'm sure you can guess. So here we go. The novel takes place in Nigeria prior to and during the Nigerian Civil War between 1967 to 1960. The effect of the war is shown through the dynamic relationships of 5 people's lives, including twin daughters of an influential businessman, a professor, a British citizen, and a houseboy. After Biafra's declaration of succession, the lives of the main characters drastically change and were torn apart by the brutality of the Civil War, the decisions, and their personal lives. Now, I'm just going to leave it right there because I don't want to give away too much of the plot. But this book was like an emotive history lesson. And I say it's emotive because Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie is of Igbo background, and the Biafran Civil War occurred and is told from the perspective of what happened within Igbo land and to the people that were within Igbo land. And it's a love story. It's like a historical drama interwoven with a love story. And this love story is between a professor called Odenigbo and a young woman called Olana. So Olana is a twin, and her twin sister is called Kainene. And so Olana comes from this very affluent family. She meets Odenigbo, who is a professor, and she just really falls in love with him. And they were very progressive because you know, unlike most Nigerian couples during this time, they actually moved in together. Before, I think they married, or was it before married? I can't remember, but they moved in together. They were very progressive. And they just had this wonderful kind of life and social circle, and they used to have dinner and drinks with friends at night, and their friends were from the different cultures across Nigeria. So they had like a Yoruba friend, they had this other British friend that they used to invite and talk to all the time, and they were serviced by their houseboy called Ugwu. So we are introduced at the very beginning to the dynamic of Olana moving in with Odenigbo, and them settling into their relationship as a couple. And then all of hell breaks loose, literally. And the city or the land, I don't know how to describe it. Basically, the Igbo tribe, are plunged into war. And this really happened in Nigeria between 1967 and 1970, where the Igbo land, Igbo people decided that they wanted to separate from the nation that was coupled together historically, and that became Nigeria, and they just wanted to become their own independent state, Biafra. And so they basically ended up into civil war, and this kind of plunged and created this tribal division within Nigeria that is still very prevalent today. And it explained a lot. This book was told the story of the Biafran War was told so well that it helped me gain a better understanding of the tribal conflicts that occur in Nigeria. Why Yoruba people, of which I'm a member of the Yoruba tribe, why Yoruba people are seen as in a certain way, why Hausa people are seen in a certain way, why Igbo people feel the way that they do, and I could see everything from the perspective of each tribe. You know, Nigeria, the Hausa people like have the military force, and they're dominated they dominate in terms of military, and they were very much backed by the British Empire post-colonialism, and that was basically how they were able to win the Biafran War. And a lot of things that occurred, I mean, it was because they had the military might and support of the British government. They basically had the support of the Yoruba people, who didn't want to separate either. And what happened was that, from my perspective, I could be completely wrong, somebody please correct me if I am, and, you know, educate me and enlighten me. But what I could see from an objective perspective is that the state of Biafra was being kind of waged war upon in a military way, and they were fighting back by the Hausa people and by the Hausa military force. And I'm sure there were other tribes within that force, but like that, if you understand Nigerian history and how the country is structured, you'll know that the military might basically came from the north. And then they were kind of starved into submission by the Yoruba states, who basically weren't allowing any. Now, Yoruba states are kind of pretty much dominate the coast of Nigeria, so all the ports and things like that tend to land within Yoruba land. So there was no food going into Igbo land. There was no respite. There were no resources that were being brought in. So the war was fought on two fronts, from the north and from the south, and they were basically, like, you know, beaten into submission and starvation. And the story covers that very, very well. It was very emotive. It also kind of explained how the dynamics of friendship and mistrust and the destructive nature of war, in terms of dividing people that were friends, really, really good friends before, because they had to flee to protect themselves and save their lives and things like that. And Odenigbo refused to leave, and, you know, and Olana supported her husband, and it was just really, really sad how all these friendships became fragmented. Their British friend, you know, had to flee, and then, you know, the support from the British, and it was just really, really, really heartwarming. I cried so much during this book. I mean, it really, it was written like a labor of love. And even though it was written from an Igbo woman's perspective, it was written in such a way that regardless of which tribe you come from, I would challenge you not to be moved by the story and how well told it was, and how it humanized war and the devastating effects of war on people. And one of my favorite characters in the book was Olana's twin sister, Kainene. And when she went missing in the book, and I'm sorry, it's a spoiler alert, but she was my favorite character. She was so funny. She was so beautiful. She was so proud. She was so strong. She was everything that Nigerian women kind of embody and empower. And when she went missing in the book, my heart absolutely broke. And I love the way that the author did not sugarcoat the fact that she went missing, because that happens all the time. People go missing in war. And there were other things that she described in the book, how the most docile person became a rapist, how children became soldiers, you know, and that was another thing. There were a lot of child soldiers in the Biafran War. And so that it wasn't like it was written to make one tribe look good and another one look bad. It was just a wonderfully told historical romantic saga. And I absolutely loved it. I loved it. This was hands down one of the best books I've ever read in my entire life. And I would give it a 5 out of 5. Read it in a day. It was absolutely fantastic. And I implore you guys, please, 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 please pick up this book. I mean, it was introduced to me by a white Southern American man. You know what I mean? Like a book that is that good, that it transcends culture. And that's one thing that I love about reading and I love about books. It's the ability of a very good book to bring people from different backgrounds together, which this book did. And I have had so many wonderful conversations with people about this book. It's wonderful. I think it's a classic, and decades from now, it will still be a classic, and our children will be reading about it in schools. And I wonder, and I would be surprised if it isn't part of the curriculum. Definitely should be part of the Nigerian curriculum. If it isn't, it should be. But if it is, but I would hope that it would be part of the curriculum in the UK as well, just for like English literature, you know, because it was a fantastically written book. Please let me know your thoughts. Have you read this book? If you read it because I recommended it, please let me know. Leave your comments down below. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And until next time, bye.